Thank you, Mr Acting Deputy President. I too would like to make a contribution in this Road Safety Remuneration Repeal Bill 2016. And at the outset, I just want to put on the public record that the Minister, the Honourable Michaela Cash, has really put politics over substance here. You know, a political win for her has been put over decades of research, has been put over enormous amount of work by competent, professional, highly skilled people. And for the Minister to say in a very disgraceful comment that this is about the TW putting money into its coffers or filling its coffers or some such thing is, you know, an absolute disgrace. I've been a member of the TW since 1975. I know and have spoken and worked with more owner-drivers than Senator Cash will ever meet. I know the things that they go through on a daily basis. I know all about fixed costs of transport, variable costs of transport and labour costs of transport. These are the things that I actually grew up with all of my working life until I entered this place. And I know all about visiting families who've had people in their family not come home from work. I can recount to you a story, Mr Deputy President, of a police report where the driver was slumped over the wheel of his cab. The steering wheel was drenched in blood. The inquest proved that the person had ingested some amphetamines, had an ulcer that burst in his stomach, vomited and drowned in his own blood. Now, he wasn't taking drugs for a high, for a kick, for some fun. He was using those substances to get his work done, to get his daily work done. His schedule was so horrific and was so never-ending and ceaseless that to actually stay awake and contribute to the economy, he had to take drugs. Now, they are not isolated, Mr Acting Deputy President, circumstances. And no one knows better than the Transport Workers Union of the worth of the owner-driver. The worth of the owner-driver to the economy and to our society. No one knows better. Because, Mr Acting Deputy President, for those students of history, most of the branches of the TWU were formed by owner-drivers. The South Australian branch of the Transport Workers Union arose or came out of the Federated Carters and Drivers Industrial Organisation in around 1900. The 11 miles from Port Adelaide to the city was the transport connection from the port to the city, and those carters and drivers formed the industrial organisation which became the South Australian branch of the Transport Workers Union. So no one can say that the TWU doesn't know owner-drivers. No one can say that they have ever failed to represent them industrially. In their fixed costs, the fixed cost of bringing a truck to the road, the registration, the insurance, the fixed cost, the leasing payments, easily, readily quantifiable amounts. The variable costs, the tyres, the oils, the lubes, easily, readily available, quantifiable costs. And the labour costs. You go to an award, you take an award rate, you put a casual loading on it, you add your superannuation, you add your work cover, and they become an easily quantifiable rate for an owner-driver. And it may surprise this chamber, given some of the contributions we've had here today, that since 1984 there has been a contractor determination in New South Wales which has done precisely what the Road Safety Remuneration Tribunal has done today. Since 1984, owner-drivers in New South Wales have been able to access an owner-driver determination which prescribes fixed costs, variable costs and labour costs. The world didn't fall down in New South Wales. In fact, New South Wales has the highest remunerated drivers, and particularly highest remunerated owner-drivers. They are not out of work. They are still contributing to one of the largest economies in Australia in a useful, productive way. What has happened here is the trips over 500 kilometres interstate, for the first time ever, have had sensible, researched, credible costings attributed to the cost of bringing your truck to the market. And no owner-driver in this country should be afraid to charge those rates. And you, Mr Acting Deputy President, as a person with some business acumen and experience, would not put a truck on the road unless you could get your fixed costs, your variable costs and your labour costs. And dare I say it, for all of the hard work they do, perhaps a little bit of profit wouldn't be out of the question. That's what the Road Safety Remuneration Tribunal is trying to bring about. Now, for there to be a knee-jerk reaction, which is what this is, a knee-jerk reaction, a disgraceful political attack for political expediency, to just go out and throw out 20 years of hard work, 20 years of research, just for political expediency. You hope it might get you a few votes at the next election. And Mr Acting Deputy President, I haven't even touched road safety. And I can speak on road safety. As a former National Transport Commissioner, as a Director of the Motor Accident Commission of South Australia, as an Acting Chair of the Road Safety Advisory Council of South Australia, I do come to the argument qualified to talk about road safety. And as a person who does drive, unlike the Honourable Deputy Prime Minister, who in lieu of an 8-hour drive took a helicopter, last week I did my 800 kilometres on the road to attend a rural South Australian meeting. And when I got back there, I say, Mr Acting Deputy President, I was a little tired. Because 800 k's and 3 hours at a meeting is 11 hours. I did that once. Owner-drivers do that 7 days a week and put more on top. They'll do 14 hours of driving, they'll do their servicing in their own time, they'll wash their trucks in their own time, and they do take pride in their gear, as Senator Lazarus has said. They are totally committed professional people who are entitled to recover the true cost of doing their job. And that is what this tribunal allows them to do. It allows them to be in the marketplace and say, and I read the other day, Adelaide to Darwin, $6,000 to take 3 trailers, Adelaide to Darwin, with a $280,000 truck, $4,000 in standing costs, $2 grand for 6 days' work, and you bring in $300,000 worth of gear to the job. That's if you can get a little bit of backloading, you might be a little bit in front of that. The true cost of doing that job one way is $7,500. That is the epitome of the problem, the true cost of doing it. And these people are being forced to do work at less than the true cost recovery. And they have been doing it for years. And I've seen friends of mine who have brought trucks and operated them for 2 years, and operated them with the absolute commitment that God has given them. 20 hours a day wouldn't be unusual for them, only to find at the end of 2 years they have eaten the truck. The truck is worth a lot less than they started with, and they have nothing to show for it. The companies that they're employed by are paying their fuel bills because they can't afford to pay their fuel bills. Some of these trucks will do 2 kilometres to a litre. You don't have to be Einstein to work it out. If you're doing 3,000 k's, that's $1,500 minimum before you start recovering your tyres, your lubes, your oil. Now, let's just talk about road safety. There's one thing that's very clear. You can stop eating, you can stop drinking for a fairly lengthy period of time. But one thing you can't do is deny sleep. Sleep deprivation is cumulative. If you go with 4 hours sleep and another 4 hours sleep, eventually you're going to fall asleep. And you will not be able to control that. And we know, and I've spoken to drivers who have fallen asleep on the road with their 50-tonne truck and travelled for a considerable amount of distance. If they're doing 100 k's, you don't have to be a scientist to work out if there's something in front of them, it's not going to be good. You cannot avoid sleep. And when you have drivers who are stretched financially, who need to work to pay that fuel bill, pay that mortgage, pay that truck bill, pay that wage, then they will push themselves to the limit. But there are limits to what you can do with depriving yourself from sleep. And there is an old story about the first coronial inquest into transport where a carter and his driver had an accident. The driver was killed. The inquest found the horse was blind. OK, horse was blind, driver forgot to turn the horse off, it went, rolled over and he's dead. And the question is now, Mr Acting Deputy President, how many blind horses is a driver in charge of when he has a power nap or a sleep deprivation event? And the answer is 500 horsepower motors. You fall asleep for 60 seconds, it's catastrophic. And you cannot deny your body sleep. So there is a serious problem with overwork, underpay and road safety. And we, the community, are paying that. Now, we don't say that paying everybody more money is going to fix all problems, but it will take the pressure off. If you look at some of the transport companies of renown, Quickers Air, oh yeah, fancy name. You know, Quickers Air was actually proved to be as quick as air. The ACCC consigned an air freight parcel in Victoria. It went to the airport, it went in a Quickers Air truck, which we used to call bitumen Boeings, and was delivered in Adelaide at the air freight price, and they were fined several $1 million for doing this because they do things very, very efficiently and quickly. High-speed transport. I was called to the depot where a high-speed transport operator was not only high, he'd driven from Sydney to Adelaide in just over 12 hours. It's 1,400 kilometres. How is that literally possible? It's possible because human beings take a lot of risks when there's a bit of money to be made and they have no rules to bind them. So dope to the eyeballs and speeding all of the way. Very famous coronial inquiry in South Australia where a driver did back-to-back Sydney trips, and on his third way back without sleep, he crashed into a car and 3 generations of a family were incinerated. He earned Her Majesty's pleasure of 14 years for that effort. This is a vigorous, very dangerous industry. And if people cannot recover their true cost of coming to work, then something will give. And quite often it's something in the road safety area that gives. You know, if those tyres are not changed, if those maintenance schedules are not met. And, you know, I heard Senator Cash say, well, we could have a bit of gear in the truck that would fix all that. The Australian design rules, Mr Acting Deputy President, actually don't feature with crash data or journey data. If there was journey data in the imported trucks that come into Australia, it's actually taken out. The feature is taken out for Australia. In Europe, you have crash data and journey data. In Australia, you don't. The road safety aspect of this is unestimable. The cost to the economy is unbelievable. And the cost to a lot of the workers' compensation schemes around Australia is also extremely important. But dare I say it, all of that has been glossed over because Senator the Honourable Michaela Cash believes it's the TWU trying to fill its coffers. Well, I've got to tell you, nothing could be further from the truth. We have invested 20 years in this effort, 20 hard years of convening all of the stakeholders in the industry, of convening all of the experts that we could find to prove the case, prove the link between road safety and remuneration. And we were successful. And now it looks, with Senator Lazarus, Senator Lambie and others, perhaps Senator Muir will be on our side, that it'll all be thrown out without even proper debate. Now, one thing John Faulkner said before he left this chamber is the really disappointing thing is the decisions are not made in this chamber after debate. They're not made in this chamber after a good, long, hard, fulsome contribution from all sides of the chamber. They're done in tiny corners, secret deals. So here we stand today. 9:30 is the cut-off, Mr Acting Deputy President. Gagging debate. Not even allowing a proper contribution from all interested parties. Why? Because of the narrow political interest of those on the other side and some people who've been snowed, and I'll say that, Senator Lazarus, I know owner-drivers as well as, probably better than you know owner-drivers. When I was elected as the Secretary of the TWS&T branch, I had 1,000 owner-drivers vote for me. And I never shirked the task of representing them, their families or anybody in that industry. So, you know, to come in here and say, oh, I made a mistake last week. Well, no, that's not how it works. This is a vital segment of the Australian economy. It contributes magnificently. The only thing it's not good at is getting paid correctly. Most of these people will not be paying tax. Their accountant will be saying to them, you better have a better year next year because these figures don't look good. You've eaten the truck, that's depreciated in value, you haven't provided for a new one, or you've taken a mortgage out on your house for what looks like a pretty bad business deal. It has to get more mature. People need to get proper remuneration for their fixed, variable and labour costs. Lots of these owner-drivers will work themselves to death. They will rely on their partner at home to do the books. And their partner at home, and I've met them, I've met single owner drivers and their partners, I've met small companies with 3, 5 and 10 trucks. I have sat down in their kitchens and talked about superannuation payments, wages payments, truck payments, how they balance all of these things together. The only thing they're not good at is actually charging for what they do. And this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, the Road Safety Remuneration Tribunal, to get independently costed figures into a deal which the marketplace should respect. Because you can't hire a driver who hasn't registered his truck. You shouldn't hire a driver who hasn't got some second accident or some work cover. You shouldn't hire a driver that has a poorly maintained vehicle. But they do, because they don't pay them enough to do the job properly. They simply do not pay them enough to do the job properly. And quite often these drivers will have to have their costs shown to a company, and the company will then tell them, take a bit out of here, take a bit out of there. It's an absolute disgrace. This was a once-in-a-lifetime, for me, opportunity to see some sanity, some fairness and some real reward for their effort. Now, I understand what's happened. The hirer says, I can get that transport company to do the job cheaper. And they may well for a week. But if there are 35,000 useful owner-drivers today in Australia, that means there are 28,000 to 30,000 jobs in Australia which no one can pick up in a day. There is no company with that spare capacity. And if they had that spare capacity, they will soon realise that you need to uprate the business. Because no one is more efficient than an owner-driver. No one is. They get up in the morning, they're wiping their bloody chrome wheels, they're cleaning their cab. They never charge for any of that. If they can't even charge for the wherewithals of what they use in doing the job, they don't charge for the additionals. Now, I know lots of employee drivers who don't do a tack. They won't do anything on their own time. They wait till they get on the clock. And they say, fair enough. Lots of transport workers get into work 15 minutes early and give the boss that because they don't like to be rushed. But owner-drivers are most efficient people, except at claiming their costs. Now, it's pleasing to see that Senator Muir has stayed on the right side of the argument, and it's a really, how can I say this? I've just found Senator Cash's contribution very virulent, shrill and over the top. I mean, really over the top. Like, as if we're out to collect, owner-drivers' money. How does that work? Please explain to me. It's voluntary to join a union. You have to articulate a case to join a union, and you have to ask them to sign a form and pay some money. There's no great big deal out there. There hasn't been a deal like that since I was a junior organiser, and there was a deal then, but we won't go into that. But the reality is this. We need to keep this road safety remuneration bill in place, and I would like to, Mr Acting Deputy President, move an amendment to a second reading amendment, which would do, at the end of the motion, add, and the bill be referred to the Regional and the Rural and Regional Affairs and Transport Legislation Committee for inquiry and report by 2nd of May 2016. I would like to move that by Mr Acting Deputy President.
That is so moved.
Now, that, I believe, will give us the opportunity to look at this in the cold hard light of day instead of the political red haze that's descended on this chamber. It's a political red haze, double D, this, that, the rest of it. This is too important. This is about people's lives, both the road users' lives and the owner-drivers' lives, about them getting a respectable return on their great investment, and about people being safe on the roads. free from fear of injury or accident. And I commend the amendment to the Senate.
Thank you, Senator Gallagher.